Afternoon. Judges at the Supreme Court in London are considering how women are defined in law in a landmark case brought by Scottish campaigners. The group For Women Scotland is appealing against a previous ruling that trans people with a gender recognition certificate should be considered women under the Equality Act. Well, our correspondent Phil Sim has been listening to today's evidence. And Phil, tell us what's led to this being heard at the Supreme Court.
Well, yeah, judges here in London are considering this case essentially to answer the question, what is a woman? And it's a question which has tripped up plenty of politicians over the years, and now it's vexing judges too. It all stems from a bill which was passed at Holyrood back in 2018, aimed at achieving gender balance on public sector boards. It prompted a legal challenge from the group For Women Scotland, a campaign group, who argued against the fact that the Scottish Government had included trans people in the quotas in that bill. So there have been years of legal debate about this. Most recently, the Scottish Government won a case in the Scottish courts by arguing that a full gender recognition certificate counts as a change of sex for all purposes. Today, though, we've been hearing from Aidan O'Neill, who's the KC representing For Women Scotland. He says that a woman remains a woman and a man remains a man, regardless of whether or not they have a gender recognition certificate. Here's a little more of what we heard from him today.
Our position is that your sex, whether you're a man or a woman, a girl or a boy, is determined from conception in utero, even prior to birth, by one's body. It's an expression of one's bodily reality. It is an immutable biological state.
And Phil, what could the implications of this be then?
Well, tomorrow we'll hear the arguments for the Scottish Government, and they're going to argue that the law is clear that you can change sex, and they say it was clear that MPs at Westminster knew what they were doing when they passed that law. But this is very much not just about public sector boards in Scotland anymore. It's become about interpretation of the Equality Act, which is the big GB-wide law which underpins protections against discrimination for women and trans people and all kinds of other groups. It's been a very emotive issue because there are two sides here who feel like their rights, indeed their very identity, are being undermined by this. They're potentially under threat. Trans people see this as potentially undermining their rights in their acquired genders, the very status of their gender recognition certificates, whereas women's groups are concerned that it could have an effect on the running of single-sex services and spaces, that the ruling could see those left open to challenge if they don't change their admittance rules. So there are going to be 2 days of arguments here at the Supreme Court in London, and judges will then go away to consider a verdict, potentially for some months. That is a verdict which could have far-reaching implications across the UK.
Our correspondent Phil Sim, thank you very much for that.